I need to tell you something about what's happening tomorrow, March 9th. And honestly, if you're a Capricorn or you have strong Capricorn placements in your chart, this might be one of the most validating moments you've experienced in years. At exactly 8:47 in the morning, the moon moves into Capricorn. And while that might sound like just another lunar transit, I really believe this is different. This isn't just the moon passing through a sign. This is the universe opening a window for you to finally see why everything you've been through, every struggle, every delay, every moment when you watched others succeed while you were still grinding in obscurity, why all of that was actually building towards something extraordinary. Because here's what nobody tells you about Capricorn energy. The suffering comes first. The recognition comes later. And tomorrow, I think the universe is preparing to show you exactly how much you've accumulated during those years when it felt like nothing was happening. If you've been feeling this strange sense lately, like you're standing on the edge of something significant, like all those years of work are about to suddenly make sense, there's a very specific astrological reason for that, and I'm going to break it down for you in this video. But first, I need you to understand something fundamental about how the universe distributes rewards. Because if you don't get this, you might miss what's being offered to you tomorrow. The cosmic contract you signed without knowing it. Here's what I've come to understand about Capricorn. And this was a massive shift in how I see astrology. Every sign has what I call a cosmic contract. An unspoken agreement between your soul and the universe about how your life unfolds. Some signs get their rewards early. Leo gets attention and recognition from childhood. Sagittarius gets freedom and adventure as a birthright. Libra gets charm and social ease built into their operating system. But Capricorn's contract is completely different. You agreed to something that most people would never accept. You agreed to suffer first and reign later. You agreed to build in the dark while others celebrated in the light. You agreed to carry responsibilities that would crush other signs. To face obstacles that would make most people quit. To endure delays that would drive anyone else insane. And in exchange for all of that, you were promised something that no other sign receives. Unshakable authority, earned respect, and victories that can never be taken away from you because you built them with your own hands. Does that resonate? Because I think most Capricorns spend the first half of their lives wondering if they got a bad deal. You watch other people succeed easily while you're working twice as hard for half the recognition. You see people your age buying houses, getting promotions, finding love, while you're still laying foundations that nobody can see yet. And it feels unfair. It feels like the universe forgot about you. But here's what's actually happening. The universe didn't forget about you. It's testing the foundation. Because what you're building isn't meant to last 5 years or 10 years. What you're building is meant to last lifetimes. And structures that endure require time, pressure, and precision that shortcuts can never provide. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is activating this contract. It's the moment when the universe pauses and says, "Let me show you what you've actually been building. Let me reveal the architecture of your delayed victory." And for some of you, especially if you're in your late 20s, your Saturn return years, or approaching your second Saturn return in your late 50s, tomorrow might be when you finally see it. The moment when all those disconnected struggles suddenly form a pattern, and you realize you weren't just surviving, you were constructing an empire. Why Saturn makes you wait and why that's actually your advantage. Let me explain something about Saturn. Because Saturn is Capricorn's ruling planet. And understanding Saturn is understanding why your life has unfolded the way it has. Saturn is the planet of time, structure, limitation, and mastery. In ancient astrology, Saturn was called the Greater Malefic, the bringer of hardship and restriction. And honestly, that reputation isn't wrong. Saturn does bring hardship. Saturn does restrict you. Saturn does make everything harder than it needs to be. But here's what modern astrologers have realized, and this completely changed how I understand this planet. Saturn isn't cruel. Saturn is the only planet that cares about whether your success is real. Think about Jupiter, the other giant planet. Jupiter expands everything it touches. It brings luck, opportunity, growth, abundance. But Jupiter doesn't care if you're ready for what it gives you. Jupiter will hand you $1 million whether you know how to manage money or not. Jupiter will give you fame whether you have the character to handle it or not. Jupiter's gifts can destroy you if you're not prepared to receive them. Saturn is the opposite. Saturn will not give you anything until you've proven you can't sustain it. Saturn makes you wait because Saturn is building your capacity to hold what's coming. Every obstacle Saturn puts in your path isn't punishment. It's training. Every delay isn't the universe being cruel. It's the universe making sure that when success finally arrives, you have the strength, wisdom, and infrastructure to keep it. And this is why Capricorns always have the last laugh. Because while other signs are experiencing boom and bust cycles, rapid rises followed by spectacular falls, Capricorns are building slowly, methodically, with such solid foundations that when they finally reach the top, nothing can knock them down. You don't have to worry about losing what you've earned because you earned it the hard way. You don't have to fear exposure as a fraud because you actually know what you're doing. You don't have to maintain an image because your reputation is built on real accomplishments, not hype. Tomorrow's moon in Capricorn is Saturn's energy concentrated into a 2.5-day window. It's the universe saying, I'm going to show you what all that waiting built. I'm going to reveal the structure you couldn't see while you were laying the bricks. And for those of you who've been in the trenches for years, who've been doing the work without recognition, who've been building while everyone else was partying, tomorrow is your moment of validation. The 3 phases of Capricorn's journey and where you are right now. Here's something I've noticed about Capricorn energy, and I think this applies whether you're a Capricorn sun, moon, rising, or you just have a lot of Capricorn placements. Your life unfolds in 3 very distinct phases, and understanding which phase you're in right now is crucial for working with tomorrow's energy. Phase 1 is what I call the burden years. This is typically your teens, 20s, and early 30s, though the timing can vary. During this phase, you carry weight that other people your age don't carry. Maybe you had to grow up fast because of family circumstances. Maybe you took on responsibilities early, caring for siblings, working to support your family, dealing with adult problems while your peers were still figuring out who they were. Or maybe the burden was internal. Maybe you just felt this overwhelming pressure to succeed, to prove yourself, to build something meaningful. And that pressure made it impossible to relax and enjoy your youth the way other people did. This is the phase where Capricorns often feel the most alone. You look around and everyone else seems to be having fun, taking risks, making mistakes without consequences, while you're grinding, planning, building, and it feels like you're missing out. It feels like you're doing life wrong. But here's what's actually happening during this phase. You're developing something that most people never develop: the capacity to endure. You're building your tolerance for delayed gratification. You're learning that discomfort is temporary but character is permanent. And most importantly, you're discovering that you don't need external validation to keep going. You can motivate yourself. You can push through obstacles that would stop other people. You can work in obscurity without losing faith in your vision. Phase 2 is what I call the emergence years. This usually happens in your mid to late 30s, sometimes early 40s. This is when the work you've been doing in the dark starts producing visible results. The career you've been building suddenly accelerates. The skills you've been developing become valuable in the marketplace. The reputation you've been earning through consistent excellence starts opening doors. And here's what's interesting about this phase. It doesn't feel like luck. It feels like inevitability. Because by this point, you've put in so much work, built such a solid foundation. That success isn't a surprise. It's just the natural consequence of everything you've been doing. This is the phase where Capricorns start to understand their power. You realize that while other people were chasing shortcuts, you were building something real. While other people were focused on looking successful, you were focused on being competent. And now, When challenges arise, you have the skills and experience to handle them. You're not faking it. You actually know what you're doing. And that confidence, that earned authority, it's magnetic. People start seeking you out for leadership. Opportunities start flowing toward you. And the best part? You're ready for them. You have the capacity to receive and sustain success because you spent years building that capacity. Phase 3 is what I call the rain years. This is typically your late 40s, 50s, and beyond. This is when Capricorn energy reaches its full expression. You're not just successful. You're respected. You're not just accomplished. You're authoritative. You've become the person that others look to for guidance, for wisdom, for an example of how to build something that lasts. And here's what makes this phase so powerful. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You don't need external validation because you have internal certainty. You know what you've built. You know what you're capable of. And that unshakable self-knowledge gives you a presence that can't be manufactured or faked. This is when Capricorns truly have the last laugh. Because, while other signs are dealing with midlife crises, questioning their choices, watching their early successes fade, Capricorns are just hitting their stride. Your 50s and 60s are often your most powerful, productive, and satisfying decades. And that's not an accident. That's the payoff for all those years of patient, persistent work. So tomorrow, when the moon moves into Capricorn, I want you to ask yourself, which phase am I in right now? Am I still in the burden years, feeling the weight but not yet seeing the results? Am I in the emergence years, starting to see my work pay off? Or am I in the rain years, finally experiencing the authority and respect I've been building toward? Because understanding your phase helps you understand what tomorrow's transit is activating for you. If you're in phase 1, tomorrow might bring a moment of clarity about why you're carrying what you're carrying. You might suddenly see how your current struggles are building specific capacities you'll need later. If you're in phase 2, tomorrow might accelerate your emergence. Opportunities might appear, recognition might arrive, doors might open that confirm you're on the right path. And if you're in phase 3s, tomorrow might be a moment of deep satisfaction. A chance to look back and see the full architecture of what you've built, to recognize that every sacrifice was worth it. The mathematical precision of Saturn's timing system. Here's something that absolutely fascinates me about Saturn, and I think this is crucial for understanding why Capricorn's victories are delayed but inevitable. Saturn operates on a very specific timing system, and it's not random, it's mathematical. Saturn takes approximately 29.5 years to orbit the Sun, which means it spends about 2.5 years in each zodiac sign. And every 29 to 30 years, Saturn returns to the exact position it was in when you were born. This is called your Saturn return, and it's one of the most significant astrological events in your life. Your first Saturn return happens between ages 27 and 30. This is when the universe presents you with your first major test. Have you been building on solid foundations? Or have you been taking shortcuts? Have you been developing real skills? Or have you been coasting on potential? Have you been making choices aligned with your authentic path? Or have you been living according to other people's expectations? The Saturn return doesn't punish you for wrong answers. It simply reveals the truth of what you've been building. And if what you've built isn't solid, it crumbles during this period so you can rebuild on better foundations. Your second Saturn return happens between ages 57 and 60. This is when you receive the full harvest of everything you've been building since your first return. If you did the work, if you stayed the course, if you built with integrity and patience, your second Saturn return is often a period of tremendous recognition, authority, and satisfaction. You're not just successful, you're established. You're not just respected, you're revered. And the best part? You still have decades ahead of you to enjoy and utilize what you've built. But here's what I find most interesting. Saturn doesn't just operate on these 29-year cycles. It also creates smaller cycles within your life. Every 7 years, Saturn forms a major aspect to its natal position in your chart. At age 7, Saturn squares itself for the first time. This is often when childhood innocence ends and you start understanding that life has rules and consequences. At age 14 to 15, Saturn opposes itself. This is adolescence. When you're pushing against authority and trying to figure out who you are separate from your parents. At age 21 to 22, Saturn squares itself again. This is when you're supposed to start taking adult responsibility seriously. Though many people resist this and end up learning harder lessons later. And these 7-year cycles continue throughout your entire life. At 29, your first Saturn return. Another square. At 44, another opposition. At 51, another square. At 58 to 60, your second Saturn return. And if you live long enough, at 87 to 90, your third Saturn return, which is incredibly rare and represents the ultimate mastery of Saturn's lessons. What this means is that Saturn is constantly testing you, constantly asking, are you building something real? Are you developing genuine mastery? Are you earning your authority through actual competence? And every 7 years, you get feedback. You get to see whether what you've been building is solid or whether it needs adjustment. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is activating this entire timing system. It's like the universe is pulling up your Saturn report card and showing you exactly where you are in the cycle. And for those of you who've been doing the work, who've been patient, who've been building with integrity even when nobody was watching, tomorrow might reveal just how much progress you've actually made. Because here's the thing about Saturn's timing. It's slow, but it's precise. It's delayed, but it's inevitable. And when Saturn finally delivers your reward, it's not temporary, it's permanent. Why Capricorns succeed where others burn out. Let me tell you about something I've observed over years of studying astrology and watching how different signs handle long-term challenges. There's this phenomenon I call the endurance advantage, and it's uniquely Capricorn. Most people approach success like a sprint. They go all out, burn bright, achieve quickly, and then either burn out or plateau. They're operating on what I call the Jupiter model. Expansion, enthusiasm, optimism, but no sustainability plan. Capricorns operate completely differently. You approach success like a mountain climber. You don't try to reach the summit in one burst of energy. You establish base camps. You acclimate to altitude. You rest when you need to. You prepare for setbacks. You build in redundancy. And most importantly, you never mistake a base camp for the summit. You always know there's further to go. This is why Capricorns succeed where others burn out. Because you're not trying to win quickly. You're trying to win permanently. You're not trying to look successful. You're trying to be successful. And that fundamental difference in approach creates completely different outcomes over time. I've seen this play out so many times in real life. Two people start in the same field at the same time. One is naturally talented, charismatic, gets early recognition and rapid promotions. The other is a Capricorn, works twice as hard, gets half the recognition, slowly builds skills and reputation. 10 years later, the naturally talented person has plateaued or burned out. They peaked early and couldn't sustain it. But the Capricorn is just getting started. They've built such a solid foundation of actual competence that they're now accelerating past everyone who started ahead of them. And here's what's beautiful about this. The Capricorn doesn't feel bitter about the delay. By the time they reach the top, they've developed such genuine mastery that they know they deserve to be there. They're not dealing with imposter syndrome. They're not worried about being exposed as a fraud. They actually know what they're doing because they spent years learning it the hard way. Tomorrow's moon in Capricorn is highlighting this endurance advantage. If you've been feeling discouraged because others seem to be succeeding faster than you, tomorrow might shift your perspective. You might suddenly see that what looked like them winning was actually them peaking early. And what looked like you falling behind was actually you building the foundation for something much bigger. The hidden gift in every Capricorn setback. Here's something that took me years to understand about Capricorn energy. And honestly, This might be the most important insight in this entire video. Every setback you experience as a Capricorn contains a hidden gift. Every delay is actually protection. Every obstacle is actually training. And the universe is not punishing you. It's preparing you. Let me give you a specific example. Say you're in your 20s and you apply for a dream job. You're qualified. You interview well. You want it desperately. And you don't get it. Someone less qualified gets it instead. And it feels devastating. It feels like the universe is being unfair. It feels like you're being held back for no reason. But then 5 years later, you find out that company went bankrupt. Or that the person who got the job was miserable there. Or that the industry shifted and that role became obsolete. And suddenly you realize that not getting that job wasn't rejection. It was protection. The universe was steering you away from something that would have derailed your actual path. Or here's another scenario. You start a business in your 30s. You work incredibly hard. You do everything right, and it fails. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the timing wasn't right or the market wasn't ready or some external factor you couldn't control. And it feels like a massive setback. It feels like you wasted years of your life. But then in your 40s, you start another business. And this time, you have all the lessons from the first failure. You know what mistakes to avoid. You know what warning signs to watch for. You know how to build more resilient systems. And this business succeeds beyond your wildest expectations. And you realize that the first business didn't fail. It was training. It was the universe making sure you had the skills and wisdom to handle the success that was coming. This is the pattern I see over and over with Capricorn energy. What looks like failure in the moment is actually preparation. What looks like delay is actually perfect timing. What looks like the universe being cruel is actually the universe being incredibly strategic about your development. And tomorrow's Capricorn moon might reveal some of these hidden gifts to you. You might suddenly understand why something didn't work out 5 years ago. You might see how a painful setback actually positioned you for something better. You might recognize that the universe wasn't blocking you. It was redirecting you towards something you couldn't see yet. Because here's what I really believe about Capricorn's journey. The universe doesn't give you what you want when you want it. The universe gives you what you need when you're ready for it. And Saturn, Capricorn's ruler, is the planet that determines when you're ready, not based on your desires or your timeline, but based on your actual capacity to receive and sustain what's coming. The Capricorn advantage nobody talks about. There's something about Capricorn energy that I think gets completely overlooked in most astrology discussions, and it's actually your greatest advantage. While other signs are focused on being liked, being popular, being admired, Capricorns are focused on being respected. And respect is a completely different currency than popularity. Popularity is temporary. It's based on trends, on what's hot right now, and whether people find you entertaining or attractive or fun. Popularity can disappear overnight. One scandal, one mistake, one shift in public opinion, and it's gone. But respect is earned through consistent demonstration of competence, integrity, and reliability over time. And once you have genuine respect, it's almost impossible to lose. This is why Capricorns age better than any other sign. Not physically, though many of you do, but professionally and socially. While other signs peak in their 20s or 30s when they're young and attractive and full of potential, Capricorns peak in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, when they've accumulated actual wisdom, actual skills, actual accomplishments that command respect. I've noticed this pattern, especially in leadership positions. Young leaders often rise to lead through charisma, through inspiration, through getting people excited. And that works for a while. But when challenges arise, when things get difficult, charisma isn't enough. People need to trust that their leader actually knows what they're doing. They need to believe that their leader has the experience and judgment to navigate complexity. This is where Capricorns excel. You don't lead through charisma. You lead through demonstrated competence. You don't inspire people with grand visions. You inspire people by showing them that you can actually execute. You don't ask people to believe in you. You give them evidence that believing in you is the smart choice. And this creates a completely different kind of loyalty. People who follow charismatic leaders often abandon them when things get hard or when a more charismatic leader comes along. But people who follow Capricorn leaders stay loyal because they've seen proof that you can deliver. They trust you not because you're exciting, but because you're reliable. And in the long run, reliability beats excitement every single time. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is amplifying this advantage. If you're in any kind of leadership position, if you're building a team, if you're trying to establish authority in your field, tomorrow might bring opportunities to demonstrate your competence in ways that build lasting respect. Not through grand gestures or impressive speeches, but through quiet, consistent excellence that people can't help but notice. The mathematics of compound growth and why Capricorns win. Here's something that completely changed how I understand Capricorn's delayed success. And it comes from finance, not astrology. There's this concept called compound growth, and it's the mathematical principle that explains why Capricorns always have the last laugh. Compound growth means that your returns generate their own returns. You invest money. It earns interest, and then that interest earns interest. The growth accelerates over time. And here's the key. Compound growth is slow at first. Painfully slow. For the first few years, it barely looks like anything is happening. But if you stay patient, if you keep contributing consistently, there comes a point where the growth becomes exponential. This is exactly how Capricorn success works. In your 20s, you're building skills, building reputation, building networks. And it feels like nothing is happening. You're working hard but the results are minimal. Other people are getting promoted faster, making more money, achieving more visible success. And it's tempting to think you're doing something wrong. But you're not doing anything wrong. You're in the early phase of compound growth. You're making deposits into your future that haven't started generating returns yet. Every skill you develop, every relationship you build, every challenge you overcome, it's all accumulating. It's all building on itself. And there's a mathematical inevitability to what's coming. Because here's what happens with compound growth. There's a tipping point. A moment when all those small, consistent deposits suddenly start generating massive returns. And when that happens, your growth doesn't just increase. It explodes. You don't just catch up to the people who started ahead of you. You blow past them. I've seen this happen so many times with Capricorn clients. Someone in their late 20s or early 30s. Frustrated because they feel behind. They've been working hard for years but don't have much to show for it. And I tell them, you're not behind. You're in accumulation phase. Keep going. And then I see them again 5 years later. And everything has changed. The career has taken off. The business has succeeded. The reputation has solidified, and they're not just successful. They're established in a way that can't be shaken. This is the mathematics of Capricorn success. Slow accumulation, patient persistence, and then exponential growth. And tomorrow's Capricorn moon might be showing you where you are in this curve. If you're still in the slow accumulation phase, tomorrow might give you a glimpse of what's building beneath the surface. If you're approaching the tipping point, tomorrow might be when things start to accelerate. And if you're already in exponential growth phase, tomorrow might bring a moment of recognition about just how far you've come. Why your struggles made you unkillable. Let me tell you about something I call the Capricorn superpower. And it's not what most people think. Your superpower isn't ambition. Lots of signs are ambitious. Your superpower isn't discipline. Other signs can be disciplined too. Your superpower is this. You're unkillable. You cannot be stopped. You cannot be broken. You cannot be defeated. Because you've already survived things that would have destroyed other people. Every obstacle you've overcome. Every setback you've endured. Every moment when you wanted to quit but kept going anyway. It didn't just build your resume. It built your character. It built your resilience. It built this unshakable core that cannot be rattled by external circumstances. This is what other signs don't understand about Capricorn. They see your success and they think you're lucky. They think you had advantages. They think things came easy for you. They have no idea what you went through to get where you are. They don't know about the years of struggle, the moments of doubt, the times when you had to choose between giving up and pushing through one more day. And that's fine. You don't need them to know. Because you know, and that knowledge, that certainty that you can handle whatever comes, that's worth more than any external validation. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is activating this uncallable quality. If you're facing challenges right now, if you're in the middle of something difficult, tomorrow might remind you of your own strength. You might look back at everything you've already survived and realize that whatever you're facing now, you can handle it. Because you've handled worse, and you're still here. Still building, still moving forward. And this is why Capricorns are so dangerous to underestimate. Because while other people are making assumptions about you based on surface appearances, you're operating from a depth of experience and capability that they can't see. You're like an iceberg. What's visible above the water is impressive enough. But what's below the surface? The foundation of everything you've survived and overcome. That's what makes you truly formidable. The secret timeline nobody sees but you. Here's something I need to tell you about Capricorn's relationship with time. Because I think this is where the real magic happens. While everyone else is living in the present, reacting to what's happening right now, Capricorns are living in multiple timelines simultaneously. You're aware of the present. Yes. But you're also constantly projecting 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead. You're making decisions today based on where you want to be in 2035. And that long-term thinking, that ability to delay gratification for future rewards, it's what separates you from almost everyone else. I've noticed this pattern especially in how Capricorns make career decisions. Other signs will take a job because it pays well right now, or because it sounds impressive, or because it's what their friends are doing. But Capricorns ask different questions. Does this position teach me skills I'll need later? Does this company have a trajectory I want to be part of? Does this role position me for the next move I'm planning 3 years from now? You're not optimizing for today. You're optimizing for a decade from now. And this creates a really interesting phenomenon. In your 20s and 30s, your choices often look conservative or even boring to other people. You're taking the stable job instead of the exciting startup. You're saving money instead of traveling the world. You're building skills instead of building your social media following. And people judge you for it. They think you're playing it too safe. They think you're missing out on life. But then time passes, and the exciting startup fails. And the world travelers run out of money. And the social media influencers realize their following doesn't translate to real-world success. And suddenly, your boring choices don't look so boring anymore. They look strategic. They look wise. They look like exactly what someone should have been doing all along. This is what I mean when I say Capricorns always have the last laugh. You're not trying to win the game everyone else is playing. You're playing a completely different game with a much longer timeline. And by the time other people realize what game you were actually playing, you're so far ahead that they can't catch up. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is illuminating this secret timeline. You might suddenly see how decisions you made 5 years ago are paying off now in ways you couldn't have predicted. You might recognize how the path you've been on, even when it seemed slow or indirect, was actually the most efficient route to where you needed to be. And you might get a glimpse of where your current choices are leading you 5 or 10 years from now. Because here's what Saturn teaches Capricorns that other signs never learn. The future is not something that happens to you. The future is something you build. One disciplined choice at a time, over years and decades. And the person who understands this, who lives this, who makes decisions based on this principle, that person becomes unstoppable. The moment when everything you built becomes visible. Let me tell you about what I call the revelation moment. Because I think this is what tomorrow's Capricorn moon is really about. There comes a point in every Capricorn's journey when everything you've been building in obscurity suddenly becomes visible. Not because you changed anything. Not because you suddenly got lucky. But because you finally accumulated enough that people can't ignore it anymore. It's like building a skyscraper. For the first year, maybe longer, all anyone sees is construction. Noise, mess, a hole in the ground. And people walk by and think nothing's happening. They think it's a waste of space. They think the project is failing. But you're not building above ground yet. You're building the foundation. You're going deep, making sure the structure can support what's coming. And then one day, the building starts rising above street level, and suddenly everyone can see it. And they're amazed at how fast it's going up. They think it happened overnight. They have no idea about the year of foundation work that made the rapid rise possible. They don't understand that the speed they're seeing now is only possible because of the slowness that came before. This is the Capricorn experience. Years of invisible work. Years of people not understanding what you're doing or why you're doing it. Years of feeling like you're behind. Like you're not making progress. Like maybe you should give up and try something else. And then suddenly, everything shifts. The work becomes visible. The results become undeniable. And people who ignored you or doubted you are suddenly paying attention. And here's what's beautiful about this moment. You don't feel vindicated in a petty way. You don't feel the need to say I told you so. Because by the time people finally see what you've built, you're already focused on the next level. You're already planning the next phase. You're already building something even bigger. Tomorrow might be a revelation moment for some of you. Especially if you're in your late 20s approaching your Saturn return. Or in your late 30s when Saturn squares itself again. Or approaching your second Saturn return in your late 50s. These are the ages when Capricorn's invisible work ends to become suddenly visible. When the foundation you've been laying finally supports a structure that everyone can see. And if tomorrow brings recognition, if it brings acknowledgement, if it brings people suddenly understanding what you've been building all along, receive it with grace. But don't let it distract you from the work. Because the recognition is nice. But it's not the point. The point is the building. The point is the mastery. The point is becoming someone who can create lasting value in the world. Why Capricorns become the elders everyone seeks. Here's something I've observed about Capricorns in their later years. And I think this is the ultimate payoff for everything you endure early in life. Capricorns become the elders. The wise ones. The people everyone turns to when they need real guidance. Not just inspiration or motivation. But actual wisdom about how to navigate complexity. This happens because of everything we've been talking about. The early struggles gave you depth. The delayed success gave you patience. The obstacles gave you problem-solving skills. The setbacks gave you resilience. And all of it together gave you something that cannot be taught or faked. Earned wisdom. Other signs can be smart. Other signs can be talented. Other signs can be successful. But Capricorns become wise. And wisdom is what people need when they're facing real challenges. When the easy answers don't work. When they need someone who's actually been through it and come out the other side. I see this especially with Capricorn clients in their 50s and beyond. They're not just successful in their careers. They're the people their entire industry turns to for guidance. They're not just good at what they do. They're recognized authorities whose opinion carries weight. They're not just respected. They're revered. And this didn't happen because they were naturally gifted or because they got lucky breaks. It happened because they stayed in the game long enough to accumulate real mastery. They didn't quit when things got hard. They didn't take shortcuts. They didn't compromise their standards. They just kept building, kept learning, kept growing, year after year after year, and eventually, they became someone that nobody else could become because nobody else was willing to put in the time. Tomorrow's Capricorn moon is activating this elder energy. Even if you're young, even if you're still in the burden years, tomorrow might give you a glimpse of who you're becoming. You might have a moment where someone seeks your advice and you realize you actually have wisdom to offer. You might recognize that the struggles you've been through have given you insights that other people need. You might see that you're not just surviving, you're developing into someone who will eventually guide others through what you've already navigated. And if you're already in your elder years, if you're already in that phase where people seek you out for guidance, tomorrow might bring a moment of deep satisfaction. A recognition that everything you went through, every struggle, every setback, every moment of doubt, it all served a purpose. It all built you into exactly who you needed to become. The final truth about Capricorn's journey. Let me tell you the final truth about Capricorn energy. And this is what I really want you to take away from this video. Your suffering was never punishment. Your delays were never the universe being cruel. Your struggles were never evidence that you were on the wrong path. Everything you went through was preparation for everything you're becoming. Saturn, your ruling planet, is not a malefic for trying to make your life miserable. Saturn is a master teacher who refuses to graduate students who haven't actually learned the material. And the material Saturn teaches is this: real success requires real capacity. Real authority requires real competence. Real respect requires real integrity. And building those things takes time. You can't shortcut mastery. You can't hack wisdom. You can't fake the kind of deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you've earned everything you have. And Saturn knows this. So Saturn makes you wait. Saturn makes you work. Saturn makes you prove yourself over and over again. Not because Saturn doesn't believe in you, but because Saturn believes in you so much that it refuses to let you settle for anything less than genuine mastery. And tomorrow, when the moon moves into Capricorn, I really believe the universe is giving you a moment to see this truth clearly. To recognize that you're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. To understand that the timeline you're on isn't wrong. It's perfect for building what you're meant to build. To realize that every person who succeeded faster than you either peaked early or took shortcuts that will eventually catch up with them.